Hi everyone, hope you're well. This is my summary of learning for EC&I 833 and my name is Michael Wolf. During week 1, our first presentation was on productivity suites and presentation tools. The first presentation had me thinking a lot about productivity and presentation tools that I use myself and the ones that I have my students use. How much of our data is in the hands of companies like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, and how much do we rely on these tools in education? I blogged about some of the platforms that I commonly use: WordPress, Wix, Canva, Flipgrid, and the Microsoft Office Online Suite, though I prefer the offline version. Kelly commented on my post talking about how she uses PowerPoint to create videos for her students. While not necessarily its intended purpose, at least initially, as we talked about soft versus hard technology in the first week of the course, PowerPoint makes it very easy to create videos. And I find that I use it from time to time for this purpose as well. It's so user-friendly that I had our school's student services team create a video presentation using it, and they were able to do this with very little training from me. In my second blog post, I pondered about whether or not productivity suites make my students and me more or less productive. I came to the conclusion that my job would be much, much harder without the internet and productivity tools. I spoke of my conscious decision to remove work email from my phone, and Janine mentioned in the comments that for Regina Public there is no easy option to connect work email to her phone. And the second presentation for the week, which is the group that I was a part of, was Tools for Online and Distance Education. In researching the history of distance learning, I found it interesting learning about the history and how much some technology has changed. In reflecting on my practice during remote learning, I found myself missing the interaction that I normally have with students in a face-to-face sense. The learning also became a lot more teacher-centered because the expectation was that I was giving a maximum of a 40-minute lecture per class every day of the week. I tried to incorporate interactive elements like Jamboards, breakout rooms, and Flipgrids, but with attendance as poor as it was many days, it wasn't as engaging as I hoped it would be. In week 3, we had presentations on Web 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0, as well as a presentation on assessment technologies. For week number 3, I got a little bit political. As I poked fun at how progressive Saskatchewan as a whole tends to be, I explored the differences between Web 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0, and I mused about what implications 3.0 might have for education. Though I still have a difficult time wrapping my head around 3.0, a few of the commenters got a laugh out of my post. Mission accomplished. Presentation 4, Assessment Technologies. In the blogs, I reflected quite a bit on the readings as well as my own practice. I included a screenshot of Regina Catholic's assessment guide. This was another instance of learning through the comments, as Janine mentioned that while her school has worked out some common weightings for assessments by course, at least for compulsory courses, nothing is mandated at the division level by Regina Public. Arkin chimed in with a parent perspective and said he appreciated being able to log into an LMS like Teams or Scholantis to have a sense of how his child was doing. And in our fourth and final week, we had a presentation on assistive technologies and a presentation on coding and makerspaces. Presentation 5, the assistive tech presentation, had me thinking a lot about my twin sister's use of assistive tech throughout her schooling. Many in the breakout rooms talked about how assistive tech has the capacity to make learning better for everyone, not just those that require it. I was introduced to the SETT model by Janine, which goes through a series of questions that should be answered as you're discerning what assistive tech would be most beneficial to a student. I talked a bit on the blog about how wearable tech was being used by my colleague in developing an online version of a Wellness 10 course. And the final presentation was by newly PhD'd Dr. Hildebrandt, and she walked us through some of the theory behind maker culture, maker spaces, and coding. Many of the conversations that came up through the course, such as which individuals are privileged and which are disadvantaged with the use of tech, came up again, and her presentation was a great capstone for the course, this final course of my master's program. Here are my takeaways. Through this course, I've been able to learn about the history and evolution of various topics related to educational technology. It is interesting to acknowledge that though technology has changed dramatically, many of the issues related to it and its use in education have persisted for decades. I have realized that I need to be more critical when designing my courses and implementing technology in learning. This is something that was already highlighted for me during pandemic learning, but it was great to have some of the theory behind it, as well as history behind these topics as I move forward as an educator to make my classroom as inclusive as possible. I'd also like to thank everybody in the course that helped me learn throughout the semester. I'd like to thank Dr. Hildebrandt as well, and specifically I'd like to point out the people that commented on my blog, because I feel like that isn't highlighted enough in some of these courses. So Janelle commented, Jackie commented twice, Christina commented twice, Kelly commented 5 times, Ray had commented on my blog, Janine commented twice, Darcy, Arkin, and Chris had also commented. So thank you for your conversation, thank you for your questions. It made me think a little bit more deeply about my practice and things that I've learned throughout the course. So I hope everyone has a great summer. Take care, and hope to see you all face to face at some point soon.